Can't get enough of Kelly and Ramya?
We're now on YouTube for you to indulge in highlights from our show.
Always look forward to them. Good conversations. Sometimes, though, Fernie, a little heavy, but that's okay. We need to get into these conversations, and we appreciate you so much for bringing them to us, and very, very valuable. Today, we're going to talk about emotional triggers and what we can do when we experience them.
Yes, that's right. Well, someone's got to do it, Kelly, I'm afraid, because otherwise, we can't talk about these sort of things. And I'm going to be the person, I'm going to take one for the team and do it for us. And I mean, sometimes people would say that talking to me is an emotional trigger, but I'm sure nobody on this show would agree with
Not
that.
on this show.
Oh, absolutely not. No. There's probably other descriptors that are better.
Yes, we don't need to hear any of those. Thanks, Kelly. So yes, today we're talking about emotional triggering. So this is a term that we hear a lot these days, particularly on social media. I've been triggered. This is triggering, a trigger warning, perhaps. And you might find yourself thinking, but what is a trigger? Let's actually debunk some myths today and find out what it actually means, and also how you can cope if you find yourself in an emotionally triggering situation.
So what is an emotional trigger, Fern?
Well, that is a very good question, Kelly. And basically what it is, it can be pretty much anything. So a person, a situation, an event, a memory, a word, a particular smell, pretty much anything that evokes a very strong emotional reaction in you. And so this can be anything from like very mundane everyday stuff to quite serious, severe mental health kind of topics. So it's a real spectrum, but it's basically something happens and you feel something. So that might be kind of like an internal reaction, like anxiety. You might get very upset. You might burst into tears. You might yell at somebody, or it might be like a physiological sensation in your body. So you might feel like a lump in your throat, butterflies in your tummy. You might feel your heart racing and pounding very quickly. So it's all of these things that happen in response to a certain situation or a certain stimulus, let's say.
Okay, and all those reactions are a good place to start to figure out that you're being triggered. How else, or how further can we figure out that we're being emotionally triggered?
Yes, well, and that's a good point, is that the more we're tuned into ourselves and our bodies and our minds, the more we can recognize that this is happening, because it seems so obvious to say, well, if these things are happening, you're being triggered. But for a lot of us, we don't even notice that it's happening. It's all just a complete blur. Everything happens so quickly. And, you come away from the situation thinking, I don't know what went on there, but something happened. And so the more we can kind of just be in tune with what's going on inside of us, and for us both physically and mentally, the better we can be prepared to handle this stuff. But a really good telltale sign, and I'm sure you've been in this situation before, I know I have, where something happens and it seems quite innocuous. It seems like maybe, it shouldn't have caused such a big reaction, but you react.
Right.
So somebody might just make a comment, and it might not even be like a huge comment. It might just be a little thing, but it really causes this big emotional reaction in you. Like I say, you might just burst into tears. You might feel really angry. You might kind of shut down and go very quiet. So people have different ways of handling these things. But it's often when you come away from these situations, like I say, going, whoa, that did not seem like it would affect me as much as it did. And I will be the first to say that that is a very normal experience. So if you've ever felt kind of crazy or like, oh my God, I'm so oversensitive, you're not alone. It's completely normal. And it usually means that you have been emotionally triggered in some way.
Yeah.
So, Fern, what other kind of example can you give us here in everyday life, what this might look like?
Yes, so I will give you a very relatable and a very common one. So let's say you have just started dating somebody and you like this person very much, and this person seems to like you very much, and everything is going swimmingly, and you're thinking, finally, I have found the one. This is something I've been waiting for years, my whole life perhaps. Until there is always a but in these situations. So one day you come back from seeing your beloved, or just your date. Let's not bring love into it at this point. Hey, let's go slowly. You've seen them. You've had a wonderful time. You can tell how I do relationships. You've had a wonderful time. You come home. You send them a text saying, "Oh, that was so good. Thank you so much for such a lovely time. Can't wait to see you again." And then you wait, and you
Oh,
wait, and you wait, and you
in
don't hear
90
anything
seconds.
back.
Oh gosh.
Yes,
What?
indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So at first, we've all been there. You tell yourself, "Oh, I'm sure they're busy. It's fine. I'm not gonna be one of those people that's like going crazy just because somebody hasn't texted me back." And then you wait a little bit longer, and your anxiety starts to build, and you start thinking, "Did I do something wrong? Did I have something on my face on this day?" Or you
Mm,
replay the whole situation. Did I say something? Or maybe I like them more than they like me, and actually
mhm.
maybe they haven't actually said that they like me. Maybe I've been assuming, and all of these anxious thoughts start swirling around your mind, and all the time you're telling yourself, "No, it's fine, it's fine, calm down." An hour goes by, another hour goes by, you're still waiting, and then your anxiety turns to anger, and you start thinking, "Well, I should have known. Why did I ever get myself into this situation? People are all the same. I shouldn't have bothered. I don't even need them anyway." And then another hour goes by, they still haven't replied to your message. And that anger dissolves into sadness, and you burst into tears. You throw yourself down on your bed, and you just go, "Where did it all go wrong?" And like you can see here, this emotional spiral, this train of just utter devastation has come through you, just based on this situation of this person that you didn't even know them a month ago, and yet here you
Right.
are.
Yes, exactly. So that's what we need to talk about. Is it just the fact that this person who you've met, a couple of weeks ago, in a matter of hours, their lack of contact has emotionally triggered us? Like, how do we pinpoint what's going on here?
Yes. Well, that could absolutely be the case. I'm not going to say that's always the case,
Mm.
but in these situations where, like I say, this is a good example of what I was talking about really having a huge reaction to something that you feel like shouldn't cause you that reaction. And a big part of this is that we often shame ourselves for this because we go,
Mm-hmm.
"What's wrong with me? Like, why
Right.
do I care so much about this thing? Like, nobody else would care about this much." And actually, it can very often mean that what you're experiencing, this emotional reaction that you're having, isn't just about this situation. It isn't just about this person. It's very often about feelings that you've had a lot of times in the past. So you might have experienced times where somebody has let you down, somebody, you thought somebody liked you and they didn't. You might have been bullied as a kid, and it's made you feel inferior to other people and like you'll never be good enough for people. Or you might have had a really hard childhood growing up with your parents where you were made to sort of be criticized all the time and check yourself and worry about things. There are so many reasons. I've obviously only given a very few, but there are lots of reasons, and a lot of times you're playing back things that have happened to you a lot of times in the past, not just what's going on here, and that is why it's causing such a reaction.
Okay, but so Fern, what should we do if we feel like we're possibly in an emotionally triggered state?
Yeah. Well, the first thing to do is to try and slow everything down because, like I've mentioned, everything goes very, very quickly. And that's where we get into these situations where we go, "God, what happened?" I don't even know
Right. Oh,
how we got to
yeah.
this point. So we need to ground ourselves in the present moment and in the place that we are. And so one way of doing that is to just stand up and feel your feet on the floor and take a few deep breaths to sort of try and just regulate your breathing and slow your system down a little bit. And then try and sort of focus on your senses. So, what is around you? What can you hear? What sounds can you hear? What sounds are louder and what sounds are softer? Is there any smells, anything that you can taste in your mouth? And then sort of identify some objects, maybe some objects near you. Maybe you're just sitting somewhere, you get your desk or something like that, and you can just feel with your fingertips different sensations. And what this is doing is it's bringing you back into the room, into the here and now. Because, like I say, you might be in some part of your mind time traveling back to, whatever time when you were a little child. And so, what we need to do is to say, "I am here now. I can handle this. I can cope with this." And if you're in a situation where you're in person and you feel triggered, a good thing to do is try and remove yourself. So take yourself out of the room, whether you need to excuse yourself and go to the bathroom or something like that. just to give yourself that moment. And what that allows you to do is to just take a step back and respond to that situation instead of reacting. Because quite often when we're triggered, we react and we actually end up making it worse for ourselves, because then not only are we emotional, but we say something that we end up regretting. So this just gives you that moment to go, how do I want to respond to this? Do I need to put a boundary in here? What do I want to do next? Instead of just doing it, based on your emotional state at the time.
Yeah, because it is, right? It's a particular state you're in. Something caused it. Being aware of what that is can be very helpful. And then, like you said, coming back into the present moment by physically coming back, like putting the emphasis on your physical body and senses and breathing. We know that that stuff is helpful in a lot of cases, Fern, even if you have no idea what the trigger is caused by, just to kind of come back to the present. So my question to you is, if we practice responding differently to our emotional triggers, let's say we're really taking your suggestions and advice and hunkering down,
Of course.
does that mean that over time these triggers are going to go away?
Well, that is a good question, Ramya. And what I would say is that quite often another mistake that we fall into is thinking, I should be over this now. So
Yeah.
we might go a long time and not be triggered. And of course, these things help us. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it would never go away. Perhaps sometimes you will be in a situation where you will find that you're not emotionally triggered by something anymore. But 10 years down the line, when you haven't been triggered by that thing at all, we just don't know what's going to come up that might bring those feelings back. And that is okay. In that moment, instead of going, oh, I thought I was over this and I'm not, and I'm back to square one, we need to say, no, this is normal,
Yeah.
this is okay, and I'm going to be nice to myself, and I'm going to look after myself because I know I can cope with this. So it's actually more about learning how to manage it rather than trying to get around it or overcome it entirely, because that's just not really very helpful to think about.
You bet. What should be our main takeaways when it comes to emotional triggers, Fern?
Well, what I just said is completely normal. It's so natural. Don't shame yourself. Be kind to yourself. Make yourself a cup of tea and look after yourself. And the more you get to know yourself
Yes.
and your triggers and how to manage them, the happier and healthier you will be in your life.
Fern Lulham joining us on the program. Oh, man, great advice. Great discussion, Fern. Thanks. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks. Talk to you soon. Have a good show.
Thanks for watching.
You can catch Kelly and Ramya weekdays from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern on AMI.